Welcome friends to our July Q&A video, also the first one I've ever done, so hopefully this goes smoothly. If not, we'll switch it up and do it different next week. I was actually very surprised at the number of questions that got sent in on Patreon. I really appreciate all of the beautiful questions, really well thought out things that I can tell people have been contemplating and chewing on and sent my way to get my opinion on stuff. So I appreciate all of that support on Patreon. Lots of folks sending me some private stuff. So if your question doesn't appear in this video for July, then I have sent you a direct message on Patreon and just answered you directly. So we've got a good handful to get into, and hopefully in addition to answering your questions, this will also inspire some new questions for you. Maybe some stuff we can talk about in August, right? For folks that are participating on Patreon, I post a call for questions on the 20th of every month, and then this video comes out the last day of every month answering your questions. You can do it anonymously if you want, so pretty much anything goes. First question that I want to talk about, I'm really excited about this one from Sharon. Thank you, Sharon. And I'm going to paraphrase everybody's questions because y'all wrote everything so eloquently, and I'm going to try to save time and just shorten everything a little bit. So Sharon brings up the idea of so many plants, so little time, how to feel engaged and really explore and experience a deep connection without getting overwhelmed by the sheer number of plants that we want to be friends with, right? Or feeling like you aren't giving each plant that shows up for you or each plant that you're interested in as much time as they deserve or as much time as the relationship may require. So really lovely question. Really shows where your heart is in this work. So I appreciate that, of course. I have two ideas for you. The first, the day that I'm filming this video happens to be the new moon, and what I like to teach folks is to sit one lunar cycle with one plant spirit. So you're doing 12, 13 a year, but you're getting an entire month with one plant, starting at the new moon. As the moon waxes in power, we experience that plant getting stronger and louder up to the full moon, and then returning in subtlety back to the next new moon, and then we move on. And this is nice because it's intentional. The contractual part of it, like you're making it pretty clear through your intent that you're sitting 29 days with this plant. So whatever's going to happen, let's get it done, right? I got stuff to do. And the spirits appreciate that. The plant spirits appreciate having those boundaries and those clear expectations. You can, if it's a plant that is safe for you to take internally, what I will generally do is sit 5 or 10 minutes a day, take a small little dose, three to 9 drops, just a little baby dose of that plant and tincture, and really learn from them internally. I keep a notebook just for this work, journaling the date, who I was sitting with, what kind of medicine I took, and then anything that came up for me, anything the plant taught me. Also taking lots of extra time during that month to look that plant up in my books, see what other people have said about that plant, watch YouTube videos, read about botany and history, all of that, right? And really just spend that whole month in devotion to one plant spirit. So that's one thing you can do that gives it kind of a rhythm. Another is to recognize that as we get closer to individual plant spirits, they tend to open us up to all of the plant spirits. And I think in your question, you mentioned, that approaching the plant spirits all can feel a little bit too diffuse, right? And so if you want to sit for a really long time with one plant spirit, 6 months, a year, be aware that that plant spirit also is connected to all the other plant spirits, and they can kind of recruit them and bring them in and make connections with you and for you. So even though it feels like you're kind of, eyes on one plant, as other plant spirits want to come in, they can, right? Because that gateway is open. So 2 ideas if you want more let me know. Those are just the two that came to mind that I thought might be interesting to chew on. So next question from across the pond, our friend Pip, hi Pip, asks about gardening, pruning, cutting back, managing space. I think we've all been in this situation where we've had to, remove a sapling or really, control the way that a certain plant is growing because maybe they're taking over and strangling out other plants, or I remember somebody talking to me about a plant growing in their yard that was really noxious to their pets. And so that feeling of having to get into the dirt and pull a plant up, can be kind of overwhelming, kind of intense. And so Pip wanted some ideas on how we can do that ethically, with a deep respect to the plant persons. And the first bit of advice that I have for you is just over communicate. When I've personally had to do this, I will give the plant a few days of notice, go out, maybe tie an offering to the plant. If I have to make a cut, I'll usually tie that offering, where the cut is going to be made. And I just lay bare my intent. The spirits respect that. And just say, look, I recognize that you, tree of heaven spirit, for example, this is something we're battling with a lot where I live, have, shown up and manifested in this spot, and as you have in countless millions of other spots, and it's not going to work here. I'm trying to grow medicine and food, and your canopy is so dense that no sunlight gets through, so we got to go. So give them a few days to prepare, ask them to draw their life force back out of the tree. You're basically asking the spirit to pull itself back from that incarnation and move somewhere else. And to me, that always feels really good. It's always well received by the spirits, especially when an offering is made, to express your gratitude and all of that. But sometimes we have to hold firm these boundaries, and that's just part of it. Another thing is using what you can from that harvest, composting what you can't. Try not to let it go to waste. If there's ways you can use the wood or the leaves or the flowers and, somehow, I think that makes it feel better, that it wasn't all for nothing, for naught. And I also want to mention that most of the anxiety around this issue is mostly on our side of the hedge. The plants don't stress out too much about it. Again, if you were to cut back some vine, recognize that the vine spirit is mighty and they are showing up in countless places across the world. That vine patch in your backyard is just one little place where they've sent a little stream of their light into the world. So it's not like we're killing the spirit or doing, irreparable damage. We're really just asking that particular expression to not be there. And we tend to take it more hard than they do. So really great question again, showing a lot of heart-centered approach to this work, which I appreciate and celebrate. Rebecca sent a fantastic question: how to gain more confidence, competence, experience in making herbal remedies and medicines. Maybe reading less about it and doing it more, getting into the kitchen or wherever and doing the thing. So how to find opportunities to do that work and to really make it happen. And I think this is a cool question because we all get stuck in our heads and we all get stuck in the process, and it can be really overwhelming to take that next step and be like, okay, now I want to start really making a ton of stuff and experimenting and playing and finding my own way. So I bet this is a question that a lot of people have, and we'll be happy to have some insight on. So my first response is put yourself first. Look at the things you're working on in life. Look at the medicines, the formats that speak to you, and make them for you. Let this be personal. Work with plant medicine as a way to do self-care and a way to meet yourself where you are in your spiritual journey, right? Be selfish about it for a while, because when we're making medicine for ourselves, there is a depth of connection and a depth of experience that sometimes gets missed when we're so busy worried about how someone else is going to receive it, or if it's going to work for someone else, or if they'll like it or they won't like it, if they'll use the medicine or they'll ignore the medicine, right? So get into it for you. And then from there, we can be in service of other people. Try to have fun. Look at it as experimentation. Look at it as I sometimes come into this work sort of almost hoping to have some failures because I've learned so much. For example, I just spent the last 4 or 5 weeks perfecting not a formula, but the texture of a salve that I wanted to make to help folks with hemorrhoids, mostly pregnant women, but it's really for anybody. And I screwed up so many times and I failed, and one day I forgot to write something down, and then came in the next day and couldn't remember what I had done. And it's just the whole thing. But I learned so much, and actually got to know shea butter really, really intimately in that process, and how shea butter interacts with doing balms and salves. So it was all worth it. So try to have fun with it, and see how you get closer into your own art through these trial and errors. You could challenge yourself to make medicine at least once a month, something new, a new tincture, a new salve, a new balm, a new format of medicine. You could challenge yourself to craft medicine with every plant you harvest from your garden, or every plant you wild harvest has to be applied to a different kind of herbal medicine you haven't made before, a different format, an incense, a salve, a balm, an oil, a bath, a spray, whatever. Again, have fun with it. The spirits respond to that. And rest assured that if you're worried about killing somebody with your herbal medicine because it's not perfect, chances are you won't. So that's nice. Andrea asked a great question. How to be more open to the quiet ways of the plants, right? How to know when the connection is there, what to do when you're not getting anything from them, right? When you feel like nothing's happening, you're showing up, but it's kind of crickets. I thought this was a beautiful question because everybody feels this way. This is one of those questions that all of us wish somebody would ask. So thanks for asking, Andrea. So a few ideas, again, just my experience, and maybe other people can use the comments to share some points of view that I don't have or whatever. One thing is, sometimes we tend to focus on 1 or 2 or 3 of our senses exclusively. They're the senses that are the strongest for us, that are the most important for us to use to engage with the world. And the communication is coming in quietly through all the senses, or a little more loudly through a sense that's not dominant for us, rather than coming in the way that we sort of expect it to, or the sense that we assume it will come through, because these communications are learning experiences, right? So we're going to get challenged to do things a little bit differently. So you may be focusing on 1 or several of your senses. Try to listen from everywhere, right? Try to get into that space where like the wholeness of your being, both the physical and the non-physical senses, are really just in that sort of anticipatory state, right? To let it come in. So you could try that. You can check your expectations. This is something I have to do all the time. Try to get curious in a way that allows for communication to happen in unexpected ways. Sometimes it doesn't come through the mind's eye, through creative visualization, through feelings, through memories. Sometimes it comes through omen, through synchronicity, through the world around you responding, through something that happens the next day. So we have to get into the curious space of communication and just put it in neutral until we get what we want, right? Because the heart, as a liminal crossroads space within, is always in communication with the world and with the other world. And that message will continue to come until we get it. Let's see if I wrote anything else. You can ask the plant to show up for you in louder ways. Tell them, hey, I'm starting to get frustrated. I'm not getting it. Show up for me. Ask them to show up in your dominant sense. Ask them to show up in a way that will help you let go of doubt, or self-criticism. Ask them to show up in dreams and synchronicities, inspirations, out of the blue, whatever. Sometimes we just need to ask for what we need, and they're like, oh, okay, cool. We just didn't want to scare you, so we didn't get too loud. Let them be loud. Sometimes we need to put the work in first. Small dose of medicine when that's appropriate, making a small offering to the plant spirit, just pouring some water for them, and just to kind of open the ways, get things moving, get that cycle of reciprocity kick-started. And I loved, when it's appropriate to take a little bit of that plant medicine inside of us so that we're attuned, that there's plant within and without, can be helpful. So play with those, see if they help. If not, let me know. I'll give you some more to try. Another one from Sharon, great question. How to know when it's time to shift your energy from one plant to another, to change how much time is being devoted to a specific plant, and what does it look like to have long-term allies? So this is a really fantastic question, because these are the issues we start running into when we start doing the work long-term, right? How do we know? How do we know how long we're supposed to sit with a plant? One really fantastic way is to follow the medicine. Listen to the way that the plant speaks to your life and how they've healed you, or how they've brought you wisdom or adjustment or changed things in your narrative. And when there's no longer something for that plant spirit to heal, sometimes it's time. We never divorce them, we never fire them, but the relationship changes in intensity. They're always inside of us. Once we have the connection, it's always there. But we're allowed to move on, to who's next. So we can use our disharmonies as an indicator of when to call a plant in and work heavily with them, and then when to, move that relationship into a less intense state and move on to a different plant spirit. Allow yourself to be handed from one plant spirit to another. They do this all the time, that we will work intensely with one plant spirit for a month, 2 months, several years, only to find that they seem to be calling another plant spirit into our meditations, into our work. We can't get this other plant out of our mind. And this is very normal and very beautiful, that a plant spirit can say, my virtues, my area of influence has done for you what it can be done for you right now. But I have this friend that I think you should go sit with for some time, right? How amazing is that there's no ego in it for them, that they're like, if I can't help you, nobody can help you. If I don't get all of your devotion, nobody, no. They are very happy to say, you know what, there's someone else from the green realm who, with the growth that you've done, is now more attuned to who you are and where you are. So move to them, right? It's a beautiful thing. Honor your disinterest. If you stop being super interested in a plant, honor it. They don't want it to be forced. You don't want it to be forced. This shouldn't be forced. It is work, but it should never be forced. It shouldn't feel like a chore necessarily. Be aware. A lot of the time this question comes up, it's because we are afraid we're going to offend them or dishonor what they've given. So be aware that when you have sat with a plant for a few days, a few years, it doesn't matter. When that connection has been made, they grow inside of you. They live inside you now. Their energetic print is in your blood, in your bones. You always will carry them with you. That respect will always be there. Whenever you honor the work, you honor them. So we can let go of a lot of the anxieties and fears around, offending them in ways that we might offend a human person. They're not offended that way. And be aware too that sometimes relationships are quiet with the plants. Sometimes they are still very much there doing work, very much keeping an eye on you, but they just become quiet. They move into the background to create space for you to do other things. But when they're needed, if they're needed, oh boy, will they roll in with a fierceness, with a loudness. So we can lean on that. We can rest on that. Let's do one more, just to keep this not too long. Another one from Pip from across the pond. This is a little bit more getting into spiritual herbalism, so I appreciate this. Addressing anxiety held in specific parts of the body. Okay, so some folks they get heart stuff. Some folks get head stuff, anxious stomach, body aches. There's all kinds of ways that anxiety and stress can show up in the physical body, aside it just being stress, right, or anxiety. So every herb has an action and an energetic and a direction in the body. So when we look at a list of herbs that are nervine or sedative or anxiolytic, these herbs that help us calm down, remove tension from the nervous system, quiet the mind, release stress and anxiety, each of them will also have a specific area into the body where they like to move, right? They have an affinity for that part of the body. So we choose herbs that address the main issue, anxiety. We then have to make sure that that herb fits the individual person's energetics, fits them constitutionally. And then we can consider, how does this herb move inside of the body? If this person takes a tincture of chamomile, for example, will chamomile move into the mind and quiet monkey mind and negative self-talk and catastrophic thinking? No, chamomile does not move into the mind. It moves into the belly, right? And then from there into the smooth muscle lining of the body. If the person's got a lot of tightness, heart palpitations, tightness in the chest with anxiety, I might think of one of my closest allies, linden or tila. That linden is a nervine, relaxant herb that loves to move into the heart center, into the chest, and unfold from there, right? I think of betony as an herb that moves up into the head, into the neck, and unwinds anxiety from a location. Now, these herbs should never be put in a box. It's not that wood betony can only help you with anxiety that's in the head from the neck up. No, that's just sort of where they go set up camp in your system, right? And then from there, their effects ripple. But if you are able to pick an herb that sets up camp in the same part of the body where you're really kind of somatically holding the anxiety or kinesthetically moving tension around, then you're going to feel all of that kick in so fast. So hopefully that's a good indicator. Of course, slightly beyond the scope of this video, but a great question, and one that I want you all to know has an answer. That wherever, however, whenever, there are herbs, plant spirits that have an affinity for that path. And we just have to choose the right ones to get the job done. So thank you once again to everybody who sent questions. I will post a question response on August 20th on Patreon for all patrons at every level. Send me your questions. We'll do another video and post it at the end of the month. And until then, I'll see you in our other classes and courses. Take care.